Hi, everyone.
Hello.
It's Nat. How are you?
I am good.
Awesome.
I'm multifaceted.
Excellent. Excellent. Yeah, we haven't done these in a while, and so Happy New Year to everyone. And we thought we might get back into the swing of things. I think we've each been experiencing life and felt like it might be a good time to restart these and share what's going on in our
Mm.
worlds of coaching, in our world in general, and yeah, see what that brings up for you and me and any of you listening. Yeah.
Well, we were thinking about what we were going to start with today and what we were going to talk about. I guess one of the key things that people might be interested in who are listening to this is our kind of life and exploration as coaches, and as human beings who coach. As we run the advanced diploma together in Asia. We are, how many months are we? We've got 3 months left of the first
Yeah. So I
cohort.
think we're 6 months through.
Yeah. And so we'll complete back in Bali in July. And we will be starting our next cohort in October in Chiang Mai, which is very exciting. But one of the things Mac and I are both doing at the moment is completing our own assessment of when we did the program ourselves. So there are some requirements, some reflection, conversations, and essays that we're required to do to become officially certified. And Mac, you're all passed and done,
I'm done.
and I'm nearly there. And I had a really, I have supervision, and I had an interesting conversation last night with Ian about partly about some of the feedback from my essays that I submitted, my reflection essays. And one of the things he said was the emphasis that I had put on this kind of orientation towards getting better and developing, continuing to develop. And the subject of the reflection essay itself is one of them is about how the impact that it's had on you, the program has had on you as a coach. And so it was just interesting to me that he picked up on this orientation that I'd had about this continuous development and this getting better. And he asked me a question, something like, what if you're enough now? It was a better question than that,
Yeah.
but it was just this kind
Makes
of,
sense.
um, this I think there's a few things here. One is my own orientation towards kind of continuously growing, and in that my own perception of my own enoughness as I am now. And then also I think the question that comes up for me is in developmental work, in which the lens in which we look through, where does that come into, where do we get entangled in the developmental work? And I don't know quite what the right words are, but we'll forget about our own enoughness now. And you resonated with that as I was sharing that with you.
Yeah. I mean, I love the. I love that he was able to pick that up in the read in the in the essays,
Mm.
and I know it's something that I've thought about. I think through the last number of years. I think probably even before this program, but and really talking about the shadow side of this continuous improvement, always growing idea.
Mm.
And one of the things that I'd come to was, well, it feels like I have a belief that if I'm not growing, then I'm dying. So I picked up some of that language, like if you're not growing, then you're dying. I was like, oh, am I? And so the shadow becomes, if I'm not continuously improving, like then I essentially I'm not happy with who I am today.
Mm.
So what happened to being at peace with who I am today? And is that dissatisfaction driving this need for more growth? Or is there some other intentional motivation that's driving this need for more growth? And it's funny because, the timing of this is really funny. I was driving my car yesterday and I saw this new course. And over the last 10 years, every year for the last 10 years, I've invested I would say anywhere from like 5 to 10,000 US dollars in some sort of course program to like upskill.
Mm.
And yesterday, as I was driving, and I saw this course, and it was like it was to get like essentially certified in reading human design, so to go a little bit off the beaten path. But it's a 6 month program, online learning with this woman in Australia who I like. I was like, I kind of feel tired this year. I'm gonna say no learning this year. Like I don't want to do it. I don't want to be studying this year. Essentially, I would like my time to go in different places, and that felt really nice. It felt really calming to say. Like I think the pressure that I think I've been feeling for the last 9 years has been, I need to get there. I need to get there. And
Mm.
something in the 10th year, as I have my business for the 10th year, I was like, I think maybe I could just take this year and find some rest, find some peace, and then we'll start again next year. But yeah, that was something that I committed to myself, and that's felt really like really great, because I haven't felt that. There was an anxiousness and anxiety in previous years. I'm like, okay, what am I going to learn? What am I going to learn? Because I didn't feel well enough equipped. And at this point, I think I'm like, yeah, like I think I have enough to do the work that I'm currently doing and more. Yeah. But that's taken a long time to get to. Well, yeah, a long time.
Mm. It's when you said there, to kind of the continuous learning to get there. Where is there for you, or where was there for you?
It's interesting. I think there was having a healthy business, healthy coaching business that was sustainable. I mean, so many people, not so many. There are a number of people at the start who are like, Matt, don't do this. Don't do this business. You're gonna fail. And I was like, what? And oh, it's really hard. It's really hard. And so I think there was something in me that wanted to prove to myself that I could do it. I wanted to prove it to them that I could do it. And also that I really needed to do it. I mean, I think, when I started, I was in a pretty dire place. I was running out of cash, spending my savings. And I think there for me has been this place of, I think, some of what I have this year, feeling at peace that yeah, like I do this work really well and I have been acknowledged for doing it really well. And I think both internally, like from myself, and then also externally validated. Yeah. And then even just reaching the milestone of 10 years, I'm like, I've been in
Mm.
business long enough, right? I think the stat is that most businesses shut down, like 90% of businesses shut down after 7 years, right? So to even like to be get given the chance to pay my business registration fees for the 10th year, I'm like, whoa, this is pretty cool. So I think something in the even in the meaningless number 10 years has been, oh, okay, like I have a real chance at it lasting for longer
Mm.
than 10 years, and people are like, yeah, why not 20 years,
Mm.
and now that's a possibility.
Yeah, and I don't think even I don't think 10 years isn't I think 10 years is significant. I think a
Hmm.
decade, there's something um energetically that gets seeded in, I think. When we think
Hmm.
about our own aging, each decade brings something new. It's like we're able to we're sourced by the 10 years that we've
Yeah.
been doing whatever we've been doing. So I think it is significant.
Like I think the number is a little bit less meaningful, but I think the confidence that I'm now sitting in
Mm.
feels very powerful. I'm like, oh,
Mm.
yeah, okay, this feels way better than it did like 5 years ago when it was
Mm.
still like teetering. I'm like, is this gonna work?
It is quite there's something very satisfying about it's satisfying and it's calming to have been in this business and been doing this for I've been 9 years, so I'll be a decade next year. And there's something you're like, I have got my stripes, I have got my and I've always being the youngest in my kind of work environment, not anymore, but I think I was always needing to prove myself or feeling like I needed to prove myself a little bit. I didn't go to university. I've always been very, I guess, a bit of a grafter, just started out young. And there is something very calming and satisfying about just doing the work and getting to a point where you've done the work for long enough that you do have a little bit of, you have wisdom. You have wisdom.
Yeah.
Do you think the developmental work has added to the calm and the confidence and that you feel?
Very much so. Very much so. I think a big chunk of it is the lessening of the need to keep pushing the cart up the hill, at least inside. I still have my guy who needs to like push the cart up the hill. But there's a deeper appreciation for the present. What do we have now? And I mean, that's the type of coaching we're doing, right? We're moving into what is with us right now. What are the feelings that you have? What's the context that's presenting itself to you now, as opposed to the attachment to the future. And I think that's helped me internally to sit with, the everyday, right? And I sit here and I'm like, okay, actually, it's pretty good, right? I was out at the pool with my kids yesterday and watching the sunset and meeting a guy who like makes gin, drinking his gin. And I'm like, this is really a great day, And I think in my, previous years, I think the time was just sped up, right? It's just like, okay, what do I need to get to next? What do I need to get to next? Okay, well, we got this dinner, and I'm supposed to go to these drinks, and then meet this other person. And so the appreciation for the moment wasn't as deep, I think, as it is now. And that's been through, I think some of the training that we've done, right, to recalibrate our thinking process, to recalibrate our, like, what's important? What am I noticing about this moment? Yeah. Yeah, so I think it's been hugely helpful, from a personal perspective.
Yeah, I think it's this. I think what a lot of coaches can get caught up in is the skills development, whether it's team coaching or systemic coaching or neuroscience or coaching for coaches or whatever it may be. And there is always something that there's always programs and training courses or even tools, like you say, human design, whatever it might be. And I think that what the developmental work has really done for me over the last few years has allowed me to work on my interior condition, my being, which has enabled me to show up in a different way, which kind of sounds a bit odd considering we actually run a program ourselves for coaches. But yeah, there's something about the being that is quite unique about the developmental work.
Yeah. And I would say, I mean, like I'm not free of where we started from this conversation, right? Like I think there are these moments of like, oh, I need to make more money. Like this isn't going to work.
Yeah.
Right. And so, but I think the time spent in that is probably less than it used to be now. Because I think at least I can hear the spiral. It's not all true. And I'm interacting with my inner monologues rather than just getting in the bus and then letting them drive around for like 3 hours or 2 days.
Yeah.
So I think that's also part of part of this work has been really helpful to just be able to sit, listen, accept that there's some fear and anxiety about not being enough. Okay. And then I'm like, okay, hey, I'm going to come give you a hug. And then I'm like, can we carry on? Can we carry on with what we're doing? Because, there's a lot of cool stuff that's happening.
Yeah. I mean, that's why I brought this up. I'm definitely, swing. I almost don't realize I'm being had by my beliefs of not enoughness until I'm swept up in it. And like, I don't, it's something that I'm still had by, like you say, it's driving the bus, and I'm like, crap, I didn't even realize I was a passenger.
Right.
And I think I'm wondering, like, that's why supervision is important, and community, and yeah. But it was very interesting. So what I found when I was so I did my reflection essay as a writing essay. I like to write, but what I found was, when I was doing it, I was felt the energy of what I used to feel when I would write a self-evaluation when I was in the corporate world. Yeah. And it was like this, I've done this, and I did this, and I implemented this. And it was really interesting how I could feel that energy coming out as I was writing it. But I didn't quite know what the alternative was.
Mm,
So this is something I'm really sitting with, is how do we have our own growth without being had by it, which then contributes to a feeling of not enoughness.
Like a few things came up for me when you just said that. I was like, oh, did you frame these essays as an evaluation of your process over the last, or did you use a different frame?
I used it as like a reflection of, this is what I noticed. This is what I notice happening in my coaching conversations. This is how I applied notice about applying a model. A lot of it was noticing things that I've been doing in my coaching for a long time. And then we've talked about this. It's that a lot of this work can be quite retrospective, in that
Mm,
you sort of practice it first, and then you realize you're following a certain
mm, right.
way of doing things. But I could feel my own expert,
Mm,
if we use the language of stages, coming through to maybe prove, to get it right. It's like I didn't, in that if we use the frame of assessment and being assessed, it brought up in me, I've got to get this right. And the only way the frame in which I could write from, was getting it right versus not hitting the mark.
not.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's funny because you started off, you're saying, hey, I was writing a reflection that's
Mm.
going to be assessed. And so who is the reflection generally for?
Yeah.
It's for me, right?
Yeah. I mean, I'm just thinking, would I have written it differently if it was just for me? I think there would have been a slight difference, perhaps, but I'm not sure. I need to
And
sit
ours
with
is
that.
hard because we've never met the assessor before,
Mm.
right? There's some random guy sitting in the UK reading our stuff
Yeah, and
and
it
then
felt quite
judging
vulnerable
us,
as well.
right?
Yeah.
And judging us based on the thing, right?
Mm.
On the piece of work, right? Which, I don't know, to me, right, cranks it up.
Mm.
And you're like, oh, I'll make sure I prep for this, right? I did the video, so I was like, I need to make sure I hit these bullet points. I need to do this. I'm just going to talk,
Mm.
but yeah. So it's interesting because like I hear the meaning making of your work person, right, coming in being like, oh my gosh, the VP is gonna like judge my year on this one document.
Yeah, and it makes me think about how many of us, whether we run our own business, whether we are a director in an organization, how much our behavior is influenced by how much this invisible assessment
Hmm.
constantly.
Yeah. And probably how we responded when we were being assessed in our most stressful times.
Mm.
And so we're just using that same crank up response, right? Like, I mean, I used to be a crammer, which
Mm.
means I would learn it all and just forget it all like the minute after I took the test, but still never even performed that well in the test.
Mm.
So the thought of writing a paper was a complete turnoff. I was like, I'm definitely not doing that. I'm not going to put myself in that situation.
Mm.
And so, but it is interesting. We go back to those modes, right? I think it's the whole. You've heard people speak about. I went home and it was like I was 16 years old again. I think it's kind of like that. Like our
Yeah.
brains like jump back into these like past modes that feel familiar.
Yeah. fall
Yeah.
back, right? We fall
Yeah.
back to
Yeah. Fall back.
earlier stages of
Yeah.
meaning making. So how this question of enoughness as coaches, how do we settle in our own enoughness whilst also having space for growth?
Mm. I think, you know, the hopeful thing that comes up for me is that each of us who decided to take this journey at some point said, I'm enough to do this. Otherwise, we never jump off of the train.
Mm-hmm.
The leap to jump off the train into this work was a big leap. So at that point, you're like, oh, I'm totally enough. I can totally make this work.
Yeah.
So, you know, I think there's probably something in like remembering
Mm.
what it was that brought us to this place of like either in the negative drive of like I don't think I could go back to work for a company ever again, so I better make it work. Or hey, like I have so many things I can offer, right? And then into the gratitude and the appreciation for like what you've done.
Mm.
But I think there's probably something in the middle, you know, getting yourself out of the to get ourselves out of the hole. Because yeah, I was like, there was something in me that was like, I think there was a lot of fear that probably drove me into this. I was like, I cannot keep living this life. I'm so poor. I'm so broke that I'm going to
Mm.
make this work. And I think I can do this. So there was sort of that dualistic, like, you know, driver of it. But, you know, now it's much more like, oh, okay, like this is going. And I just need to, you know, I need it to probably permeate into the other parts of my life. Like, yes, I will. Like, someone will love me, and you know, I'll be able to meet somebody who you know wants to be like a partner with me. Like all that kind of stuff. I fall into that hole pretty deeply still,
Mm.
and so I think that's where you know now it's just a matter of yeah having that permeate through. Like I think I've found it more in my work self, and having it carry through to the other parts is the challenge.
I really like that. It's like touching that source energy that we have that enabled us to start in the first place and keep going. Yeah, it's like a trust,
Yeah.
a trust
Right.
in self.
Like, do we trust our past selves to be making good decisions?
Mm. Mm.
But I think we're doing a good job, right? I think we made good decisions with the information that we had.
Yeah.
And then, you know, I think the question now is okay, well, with additional information,
Mm.
do I need to change that perspective or not?
Mm. Yeah, and I think there's something about one of the aspects that Ian talks about with this developmental work and these transformational capabilities is the ability to and the bravery to experiment and learn as we're experimenting, not just after. And I think I think what we do is such a constant in the moment reflexive practice. So it's tapping into the energy of that and being curious about that without it affecting our own sense of enoughness, if that makes I don't know if that.
Yeah. 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 Because it feels helpful. It feels helpful to be reminded of it.
Mm.
You know, it doesn't seem like it's, you know, just so detrimental. It's like, oh, okay. Kind of keeps me humble for sure,
Hmm. Yeah, yeah,
which I like.
yeah. Yeah, and I think it's also just remembering that it's a spectrum, it's not a
Mm,
binary.
yeah.
It's a spectrum of actually it's more than that, but it's
Mm,
it's knowing that sometimes we'll feel much more whole and confident and sure and energized and full, and sometimes we'll be more of self-doubt and questioning and
amazing.
mm,
Well, thank you for this chat.
mm.
It's been so good. Loved unpacking this.
Yeah, I think I don't know if I've been very precise in my questions or reflections, but I think it's an ongoing question that because the work that we do is so focused on continuous learning and growth and
Mm,
reflection and reflexivity, it's how do we maintain all of that whilst also carrying all of our own
Yeah.
holes and
Yeah.
questions.
Exactly. I love it.
Do you want to do some announcements?
Yeah. So we will resume doing some inquiries on a monthly basis with the larger community. So if you're interested, please stay tuned for those or send us a message on LinkedIn and we can let you know when those are. But yeah, look out for some announcements. I believe we'll do something in early April and bring together some of the UK people, bring together some of the APAC people. I think the hope is to start, convening a community of people who are in the space and interested and curious about some of these questions. So I think that's the one. Anything else?
Yeah, we're going to do 3 sessions, I think, April, May, June.
May and June.
And we're going to bring together both Asia and Pacific coaches and UK Europe. And we will be kicking off our second
Next
cohort
cohort.
in Asia in October in Chiang Mai.
And this is for the advanced diploma in vertically developmental coaching. Yeah, it's a 9-month program. And we start off together in Chiang Mai and then we'll end up together in Chiang Mai. So, all right.
Thanks, Mac.
Thank you. We'll see y'all soon.
Happy 10 years.
Happy 10 years. Bye.